All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Say Less Basketball Podcast. You're currently listening to episode 14. Hope you're doing well wherever and whenever you're listening to this. As always, we have an abundance of NBA topics for you to hear about this week, including the top 5 important Lakers in Jeannie Buss's recent list. Comments about the Clippers. Are the Clippers pretenders? Are they contenders in the West? Analyzing the Celtics, been very lackluster this season. The Boston Celtics have, so we're gonna talk about that. Talk about the Warriors' chances with this season. Can they make the playoffs this season? And then next season, if and when Klay comes back, how will they succeed? How will they play as a team? Wrapping it all up with, as always, a player versus player debate between Charles Barkley and David Robinson. And then, as always, we'll end with bold takes of the week. But first off, ladies and gentlemen, we have the top 5 important Lakers. So very interesting. Last week, Jeannie Buss appeared on the All the Smoke podcast, which, if you guys don't know, is a fantastic podcast ran by the likes of Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, two NBA OGs, two NBA veterans. They have a lot of good content on there, very real stuff. The players can come on and really speak their mind. But Jeannie Buss said the top 5 most important Lakers were Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, LeBron James, and Phil Jackson. She named those 5 and got a lot of heat for having LeBron on there and leaving off Shaq, leaving off Jerry West, for example, as well, Elgin Baylor. So your thoughts, gentlemen. Do you think that this list is BS? Do you think the top 5 most important Lakers, do you think LeBron is in? Do you think Phil Jackson is in? Anyone want? Let's start off here.
I just want to ask a question real quick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know what they meant by that question? Like top 5 most important Lakers? Like, did they mean players? Because the way I interpreted it was players, so I was a little surprised by
and
Phil.
Phil Jackson
Phil
on
wasn't
that list is interesting, right? Yeah.
He's not. I mean, I get it. He's a part of the Lakers organization, but like, how'd you guys interpret that? That's what I thought they meant was players.
I actually didn't get a chance to watch the video, so I don't know what the actual question meant. But based off of the answer, I just went off players. I know she put Phil Jackson in there, so I don't know. I'm not sure. I'd agree. Phil Jackson might be important because he did win 5 with the Lakers. So to be honest, he could be more important than some players.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you guys have an issue? Do you have an issue with the list then, Mohammed, like Zach said?
I have issue with LeBron being there. I think if you're going to talk about all time, most important, I'd pick Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and Shaq. I put those guys, or consider putting those guys before I put LeBron. I mean, LeBron's, after that 7-year stretch since 2013, they didn't make the playoffs. They haven't had a winning season, stuff like that. LeBron came in with AD, and they won a championship. I mean, quote-unquote championship because, the little bubble thing wasn't really a actual championship run, but they still won a chip. But Shaq, Elgin Baylor, and Jerry West had way more important, fixtures, as you would say, for what they did to the Lakers. If LeBron ends up winning multiple championships, kind of puts Lakers back on the map, then yeah, I would consider that. But Shaq three-peated. He won their first championship since Magic and Kareem and all those guys departed after their little championship run. So I'll give credit to that. Him and Kobe did. Phil Jackson was part of that, obviously. And then Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. Elgin Baylor's like the first, I'd say, big, I want to say like player because obviously they had Wilt and Jerry too, but he was like the scoring, like the face of it, that championship run with Jerry and Wilt. So I feel like him and Mr. West are kind of more important in Lakers history too.
Facts. Real quick for reference, top 5 Lakers in minutes played is from 1 to 5 is Kobe, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and Magic Johnson. Top 5 in points, points scored on the Lakers is Kobe, Jerry West, Jabbar, Baylor, and Johnson. So, I mean, both pretty solid lists right there.
Wait, who is the last one there?
Magic Johnson, Magic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so those are both. Yeah, those so it's Kobe, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jerry West, Baylor, and then Magic Johnson for both. They're both in the top 5 for minutes played and points scored on the Lakers. So I'm thinking about. In my opinion, I don't think LeBron and Phil Jackson should be on this list because Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, I mean, have been insane. Were insane players for the Lakers and helped them guide to the success in those older years. Obviously, I think Jeannie's putting LeBron on here now because I think LeBron actually led the Lakers to the first title under her ownership.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the reason why she's putting him on the top 5 because she's giving him credit and they're a contender now. And he's helped them bring the franchise back to prosperity after a lot of struggles with her ownership. So, but in my opinion, in terms of the whole history of the entire Laker organization, you have to say Elgin Baylor and Jerry West get a spot on that list because, I mean, those guys were just killers. They helped the Lakers establish themselves to what they are now. I mean, you have to think about when looking at this list, you have to think about which player, would the Lakers be the Lakers if they didn't have Elgin Baylor, if they didn't have Jerry West, if they didn't have Magic Johnson or Kobe? No, they would not. They would still be the Lakers without LeBron, and they still might be the Lakers without Phil Jackson. So that's why in my list, I agree with these minutes played and points scored. I'm going to say Jerry West and Elgin Baylor are on those lists, and LeBron and Phil Jackson are not.
Okay, to be fair to Jeannie Buss, like, the Lakers haven't really been abysmal since she took over. It was mostly under Jim Buss, her father. Or brother, father.
Was it her father?
I thought it was her.
I'm not sure.
It's her brother, Jim Buss, senior, I guess.
Yeah.
Was the great Dr. Buss was their father.
Okay.
And those were the heyday. She's had good leadership, and the team has gone on the up and up since she had it. But I looked at the quotes of this, and this really surprised me. She started off by saying, "You obviously have to start with Kareem, Kobe, and LeBron." What?
Yeah.
How do you obviously have to start with that?
Yeah. Then she brought up Magic later.
And then Magic later when somebody said something, and she's like, "Magic, yes, of course, Magic might be number 1." Okay,
he is.
He's number 1. If he would be number 1 to me.
Right.
I'd make an argument. You could make an argument. I'm sorry, but I was. Not to nitpick, I was just surprised that she said you have to start with Kareem, Kobe, and LeBron.
Yeah.
I didn't think those would be the names you'd start with, and not even just nitpicking on LeBron. Like, I wouldn't have started with Kareem and Kobe either. I would have started with, like, I would have probably had Kobe started there, but, like, I would have had Magic and Jerry West. There is no way Jerry West isn't on this list to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because if you are including, like, Phil Jackson, history. Then you have to actually acknowledge that Jerry West worked for them too. And he was great at his job. He was really good at it. So you got to look at the fact that he also was a great player. So
he was the reason that Shaq came to Lakers in the first place.
Exactly. Right. He was the one who got Shaq. So I don't think so. First of all, LeBron's just not there. You replace him with Jerry West.
I don't think so. No.
I would agree with you, Zach. I could see an argument to put take away Phil and put Elgin Baylor as well. I can see that.
We're talking about, it's just weird with the coaching and the players, man. I don't know.
Can I backtrack
here, let me just say this real quick. It really depends how you're defining the word important.
Right.
Because there's so much room for interpretation on that. Because if you're just talking about, like, hey, did they lead us to championships? Okay, Phil Jackson's got to be there. There's no way he's not.
Right.
If you're talking about other aspects of it, like putting the Lakers on the map or, impacting the game, impacting the organization, okay, you could still have Phil, but then there might be a stronger argument for Elgin Baylor.
Right. But regardless, you have to have West on that list.
Can we all agree on West? Like, that it's asinine to not have West. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Mohammed, sorry.
I'm pretty sure I think I misspoke with Elgin Baylor. I'm pretty sure he's notorious for being 0-8 in the finals, wasn't he?
Oh no, wasn't that West who was like 1-8?
No, I think it's Jerry West.
West was like 1-8, right?
Let me check.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Baylor. I'm pretty sure Baylor wasn't on the championship team with West and Will Chamberlain, and I think it was 72. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just trying to point that out because I did say that he was part of that championship team, but I don't think he was. But nonetheless, I think if you can count Jerry West with what he did as a front office dude for the Lakers in the 90s, then I'd put Phil Jackson in just because I know Jerry West. I wouldn't put it like I'm not putting these guys in order. I'm just saying 5 most important. I put Phil Jackson just because the Lakers are not mediocre, but they're just a playoff team throughout the 90s, especially after Magic retired in 94.
You're right.
Yeah, he's 0-8, right?
7.
0-7. Okay.
Damn.
And Jerry West and him have the worst finals records of all time.
Damn.
LeBron, guess who's number 3? LeBron James. So I guess.
Oh man.
What
about Shaq? Do you guys think that Shaq is ahead of LeBron? I mean, we haven't talked about Shaq yet.
Shaq's ahead of LeBron.
I know.
The names you listed are ahead of LeBron.
Right.
The other thing I didn't get to mention was part of you said it is that
I mean, Shaq
she's putting LeBron there because he brought her the first championship under her lead.
Yes,
her official lead.
Definitely.
But the other thing I think is if you're saying this right now, how do you not include his name? Like it would be awkward a little bit to just say top 5 list and not include him, even though he's the best player playing for your team right now.
Yep.
Personally, like I wouldn't have, but I could see maybe that being in the back of her head, being like, hey, well, he's playing for our team right now, so I kind of got to include him.
Yeah, you got to. It's the same thing with all these.
It's that recency.
These recency, like the Durant lists, where he lists Kyrie and Harden at the top of his list.
Exactly.
They're playing together, right?
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. You're not going to belittle your teammates unless you're, a piece of crap, and then you're probably not having great teammates. But
right.
I mean, I do ultimately. I think Phil could be on there, but I could see the argument for Baylor. But Jerry West has to be there, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. He just has to.
I could see the argument for Shaq as well because, I mean, he had one of the best seasons of all time when he averaged like 30 and 14, and they went off and tore through.
Under Phil Jackson.
Under Phil Jackson, though. But I wanted to get Shaq in there too because, he deserves his credit. But any last comments?
I would be curious, just on a totally different set or on a different scenario, to see what the top 5 Bulls of all time would be.
Interesting.
Just on a different topic for another day.
Say that for a different topic.
That's way easier.
That might be easier.
Lakers just have way more legends and all-time greats. Yep. That's what makes it so difficult.
Actually, I guess Phil would just be a clear-cut answer there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Phil and Scotty, Rodman,
Interesting. Maybe next episode, maybe future episode, Chicago Bulls top 5 list. But moving on, though, talking about the Derrick Rose, obviously. But moving on, though, talking about the Clippers. So Robert Horry and Charles Barkley have both called the Clippers pretenders this season based on the fact of their choking in the playoffs last season, losing to the Nuggets 3-1, Kawhi and Paul George being the main leaders on the team and choking in the playoffs. A quote from Charles Barkley to describe just how much he thinks they are pretenders is, "I have been poor, I have been rich, I've been fat, I've been skinny, I've been old. I've been in the Hall of Fame, and one thing I can always tell you, the Clippers have always sucked." So, quote from Sir Charles, the round bound a rebound, talking about him later with Robinson in the debate. Interesting, but your thoughts, gentlemen? Are the Clippers pretenders in the West? Can they get out? Can they compete against some of these teams?
Hey, I guess I'll go first. Me personally, I don't think they're pretenders. With their history, I don't understand why, especially with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, those seasons. That team underachieved like crazy. I think it's still too early to tell with this current squad with Kawhi and PG leading the team. Obviously, last year put a big stain on what people's perception on them being a championship team is, but there's a lot of factors into it. You know, a lot of teammates were kind of going at each other. Chemistry was off. They didn't play as many games with the actual full healthy team, and I feel like the bubble kind of affected. I think they're the most affected team in the bubble just because of guys. Some of those guys didn't even want to be there.
Yep.
And you know, obviously Paul George is playing bad, and he went on TV and said, you know, he was in a dark place and all that stuff. So you could say that a lot of them weren't really 100% focused. I still think firing Doc Rivers wasn't a good idea. I know his history with, you know, underachieving, but
3-1 leads.
3-1 leads, yeah.
Yikes.
So I don't think they're pretenders. I think they're contenders, but I mean, it's only second season in with the squad. So I mean, with Kawhi and PG. So I'd have to see where they go with them this year, next year, maybe the year after. Depends if Kawhi even re-signs with them this offseason. But I think it's still too early to tell. But they look good this season. I expect them to make the conference finals, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kawhi actually does plan to re-sign. I remember I saw that news a while back, but I agree. I think they are strengthened this year, despite the loss of Harrell and Lou Williams, because of the addition of Rondo, because they did not have that floor general point guard last season and that extra leadership. So I think with Rondo this year, I think they're definitely contenders. I don't understand. I mean, especially now that they're underdogs, now that people are doubting them, I think they're going to have hopefully a chip on their shoulder coming in the playoffs, and they can tear through the Western Conference, especially if a lot of teams are injured or not at full strength, or have chemistry issues. We'll see what happens with the Lakers too. It'll be interesting to see who they end up playing in the first round of the playoffs, just with all these injuries and the comebacks down. Obviously with LeBron and AD now coming back, we'll see what happens if they can skyrocket back up the standings. But I think the Clippers are a pretender, and I think
Pretender?
no, a contender. I think I'm gonna make a bold claim here. The Clippers are winning the West this year, and I think I'm gonna stand behind this because they were contenders last year, and now suddenly they're still a good team. They're still very, very nice. Still at a very good strength this year compared to last year. And last year, a lot of people thought they could be contenders. So I'm saying this year, the Clippers will win the Western Conference Finals and go to the finals.
Huh. You know, it's interesting. I don't even know if this site I'm looking at is reliable, because I found I know that Robert Horry said that they're pretenders, right?
Yeah.
But I found an article of him saying the exact opposite as well. Said, I don't know why. Maybe it's just okay. I don't know the truth in it. I can't verify it. It was written April 28th, so it's very, very recent. But I digress. He has said in the past that that he thinks they're going to be tough to coach. That was like 2 years ago when they first got Kawhi and PG, and I think that proved right. Point being, when Robert Horry says something, you should listen. He knows what he knows what he's talking about. Now, do I think they're pretenders or contenders? I don't know. Like, how do you define this? If you're defining contenders, can they win the championship? Of course they're a contender. They definitely can win the championship. Do I think they're going to win the championship? No. Do I think they'll make the finals? No, I don't. I don't see them beating the Lakers right now. Can it happen? Yes. And here's the biggest thing. Like you pointed to, Zach, Rajon Rondo could make or break this team.
Definitely.
As Bulls fans, Mohammed and I definitely know about what Rajon Rondo can do to a team. You know, back when we had him and Wade, made all the difference. That man, as a floor general and an ego manager, that's a big thing, because Kawhi and PG, they got some egos. I know Kawhi doesn't he's not very vocal, but he clearly has an ego, clearly.
Yeah.
And so it's going to need to be managed. So basically, as out of the three of us, I was definitely the most critical of the Clippers last year, right?
Right.
I think they've addressed those issues, mostly Kawhi and Paul George, because they're just playing more. They're not sitting out for no reason at all, which is a huge deal.
Yep.
Has their roster gotten better than last year? I don't know. I would say what they've lost, they've also gained, so I'd kind of say it evens out.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think the important thing, like we said with Rajon, is just giving up Lou was going to be worth it, right? You had to understand that there was enough scoring there, and that was not the issue.
Yeah.
All this to say is I do think they're contenders. I just don't think they're there to beat the Lakers yet. And, who knows how the West is going to pan out. But I'll tell you one thing. If they blow a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets this year, that might be the legacy right there for Kawhi and PG. Because without Jamal Murray, the Nuggets shouldn't beat anybody. But, I don't know. I don't think they're going to dethrone the Lakers. Could it happen? Maybe. We'll have to see how the Lakers turn out, here now that LeBron and AD are back. But
I mean, in your opinion, what do you think they need to be contending with the Lakers?
What do I think they need?
Yeah.
Maybe more size scoring. Big man scoring. Sorry, God, that I said that really weird.
Is Ibaka back yet?
No. He's not.
Ibaka is going to be a caveat too for them because Ibaka is a crucial piece in my opinion.
Yeah.
Another big piece that's really stepped up for them is Reggie Jackson.
My guy.
So basically, they're kind of gonna be like the Nets in a way that all their scorers are not really big men.
Yeah.
Which can work. I don't think that it's impossible. It's just the other thing will be experience.
Right.
Which I think again they kind of addressed with Rajon Rondo. It's just something about LeBron and him rallying teams.
Yeah, he's a good leader, man.
He is, and but Rajon's a great leader too. So I mean, what I will say is I just hope we get that matchup.
Yeah.
Can we just get it this year, please?
That would be awesome.
That would just be amazing. And if fans are back, oh my God,
that would
make the NBA season worth it.
Yep.
So,
thoughts? Anyone else? Anybody else? No.
Catch-22.
All right, then. Interesting comments about the Clippers. We'll see what happens. But next up, we're talking about the Boston Celtics. The performance this season has been lackluster. They were expected to compete for a title this season. Most people expected them to be a top 3, top 4 seed in the East, and it just hasn't been their year. They're currently sitting at the 7th seed, I think. I think they lost that. We talked about that in previous episodes about the Heat. I think the Heat are now at the 6th seed, and the Celtics have dropped into the play-in tournament.
That is correct.
But, I mean, yikes. I'm a Tatum supporter, but I want to hear what Mohammed has to say about this first because I want to see who he blames for the Celtics struggles.
Well, I've said before during the podcast and off the podcast, I think Kemba has been a big issue, especially since he's kind of dropped off in terms of production. I know he's playing with 2 other great scorers on the team, and with the Hornets, obviously, he was basically the main option and the only option in terms of go-to scoring. So maybe adjustment has been an issue with him, but also injury. And so has Marcus Smart been injured. Yep. Tatum, Thompson, Brown. I know Robert Williams, their breakout star big man, has been out for the past couple, I think 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's a variable of a lot of things. I think their defense, especially since they have a couple good defenders in terms of all NBA defenders, they have Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown's up there. Obviously, big man Williams is too. But their defense just hasn't been up to par this year. I don't know why. They have the personnel for it, but it's just like they've been inconsistent with defense and with chemistry. One night they look like the best looking team in the league, and then the other night they just look like they don't know how to play with each other.
Yep.
I want to blame Brad Stevens because I know I see on social media a lot. Brad Stevens, a lot of fans have been saying that he should get fired this season. I know Stephen A. Smith. I think 2 months ago I was watching. He said Brad Stevens needs to look at himself before the team has to look at themselves because he thinks Brad Stevens' rotations and he's not that, like, in terms of adversity, he's not that rally, like, he can't rally the troops. He doesn't look like an aggressive coach, So I kind of do agree with him with that. So, but I just think they've just been underachieving. I don't know why. I don't watch a lot of the games personally, but like when I look at their team, they have good personnel. They have a good coach with Brad Stevens, but if I say one thing they need to do was probably, like I said before, offload Kemba, maybe get an actual floor general. Maybe they need a Rondo type guy on their team. I think their defense needs to pick up. I think that's just based off effort. You have Jaylen Brown, you have Tatum, you have Marcus Smart, you have Tristan Thompson, Robert Williams. I mean, those are pretty good defenders to me. So I don't see why they have to, let the Pelicans score 132 and let the Pistons score 120 plus. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. They just seem like they're in a slump right now. I don't know if it's just a bad season. Maybe it's the way the season's going. But hopefully in the playoffs. For right now, with how inconsistent it is and how they just one night they'll just drop 140 on the team, then another night they won't even hit 100 plus.
Yep.
If it comes to the playoffs, maybe they play the right team in terms of matchups, so they could get back to the conference finals like last year in the bubble. But like I said, for me personally, I don't know. I don't really believe they can be the conference finals, but we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
Yep. They are 5-5 in their last 10. Good point, Mohammed, on talking about being great one night and then subpar the next, because at the time of this recording on the podcast, they had that great game against the Spurs in overtime, and they came out with the win, and Tatum scored 60 points, a career high. I mean, they played well. They in clutch time, they pull out the win. A lot of players had like nice nights and contributed, and then the very next game, they lose 129-119 to the Blazers. And they just fell apart.
That was today, right?
Yeah, that was today at the time of this recording on the podcast. Yes, and they just, I mean, so it's just so inconsistent because they have those, like Mohammed said, they have those nights where they're great, and they have those nights where it's just they can't string together. It seems like they can't string together like 2 wins in a row.
Kind of like
that
the
could be a
Bears.
problem because when the playoffs, if you can't string together 2 games in a row, you're going to lose your series. So it'll be interesting who they match up against in the play-in tourney. But for right now, I don't have a lot of confidence in them, even though I'm a supporter of Tatum. I don't see them getting past this play-in tourney. I don't see them getting into the next round because if they can't string together these back-to-back wins, then it's just a recipe for disaster in my opinion. So. And I don't know. I can't pinpoint the problem because they don't have the chemistry is lacking. Like Mohammed said, the defense is lacking. They can't. It seems like sometimes they can't get together on offense too. And then a list of players have been injured, have been out. Smart recently got a suspension too. Got into it with Nurkic on this Blazers game too. So they're just very inconsistent, and I think inconsistency spells for disaster in the playoffs. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. Let's look at their team. All right. Let's look at who they've lost in recent memory.
Okay.
Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving, Al Horford, Marcus Morris, Aaron Baines, Enes Kanter, Terry Rozier.
Tice, yeah.
Tice
too.
Who was there at the beginning of this year, correct? Right? They remind me of the Miami Marlins. If you guys are familiar with baseball, the Miami Marlins literally traded away an all-star team. All-star team. This is not an all-star team, but these are some good players. Like some of these guys have really developed good roles on other teams. Now, what have they acquired that's really good in the past, in recent memory? Evan Fournier, Kemba Walker. How's Kemba turned out? Well, he's been super injury prone. Outside of the fact that he just hasn't played up to par, which I get it. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Chris Bosh when he goes from the first option to suddenly just becoming a spot-up shooter.
Yep.
So I understand that to an extent. Celtics haven't drafted well either. In recent memory, obviously, they got Tatum, they got Brown. We got those right.
Yeah.
All right, we get that. But like just recently, they haven't drafted well, which is bad because the Celtics they don't go all out for players, right? They had a chance to get Anthony Davis. Who else was it back then? Was it like I don't know if it was Giannis. I can't remember the other players they had shots to get. James Harden. James Harden was one. Yeah. Like they have chances to get these guys, and they won't give up their picks. They won't give up some of their guys. Drummond.
Right.
So, So considering that they're not drafting well, this is what's going to happen. All right. So what's going to happen when Tatum, in his next contract, he's like, hey, I want all this money. Jaylen Brown, I want all this money. What's going to happen?
Right.
How are you going to do it? Are you going to go all out?
Tatum did sign a big contract, I think, back in November or something.
Okay. I'm not too familiar, but what happens when all the dominoes fall at once and you have to start deciding, hey, do we want to go in the luxury tax or are we going to just say, screw it, we're going to build through the draft where we're not drafting well? So that's one thing. The other thing is injuries you guys mentioned. Now, prospective starting five that they had at the beginning of the year, Walker, Brown, Tatum, Smart, and Tice. Which obviously you eliminate Tice and we'll put in Williams now or whatever.
Yeah.
They have played 163 possessions together.
Man.
In non-garbage time basketball. Non-garbage time, I don't know how that's defined. I'm just guessing like a 10-point game with a minute left or something like that, right?
Right.
I don't know. The average NBA team hovers around 100 possessions per game. Celtics average 102 possessions per game this year. So think about that. They have played basically a game and a half together.
Oh, man.
A game and a half together this year.
That's
that plays into this a lot. In my opinion, that's got to be a huge, huge, huge deal. Because that messes with chemistry like crazy. Yeah. And I always thought the Celtics just could handle this stuff. You guys mentioned Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
I'm looking at him too a lot now. I thought he was a great coach. Now I'm seriously starting to look at it and be like, well, were you just a great coach when you had everything going right?
Yeah.
Are you actually a great coach? Because it's really great you can look really good when nothing's going wrong.
Right.
But now you got something going on. And Tatum just he's not it. He isn't that guy right now. And yes, he's played well in recent games, but I'm talking about, can he be the guy to lift your team? There's just scoring is not, that doesn't matter. All right. You can go out and score 80 points a game. It's different than actually elevating your team and making them win.
Facts.
So I looked at their team stats, and I don't want to ramble on here too much. I looked at their team stats.
Real quick, for reference, Tatum did sign a 5-year, $195 million contract extension on November of 2020.
So he's hooked. I don't know about Brown and whatnot, but I think it's pretty clear that Tatum and Brown aren't going to be the guys you need to win a championship, in my opinion, at least right now. I don't know. Tatum is super young, so is Brown, but their league rankings are right in the middle of the pack, and basically every stat except for offensive rebounding percentage, they're second. Like, who cares? So this is about where I expect them to be. I don't expect them to be that great, which is disappointing because you look at their roster. They've made the conference finals, I think, 4 of the last 5 years or something.
Yeah. Yep.
This is crazy. I don't think anybody expected this. I know you didn't, Zach, because you picked them to go to the finals basically every year and win it. So I can't imagine how upset you are right now. The Warriors aren't doing well and the Celtics aren't doing well. So your two favorite teams are down the drain.
And the Bulls. Bulls are now out of the
I was talking about your favorite teams, not
Oh, okay.
Ours.
Your favorite teams, man.
All right.
But yeah,
All right.
so I don't know. Disappointment. But I'm not crying about it because I don't care.
Well, I mean, I think the chemistry thing we can't really blame on them just because of, like you talked about, their injuries. They haven't really played with the real starting five a lot. But Brad Stevens, man, like you said, Will, like if everything's going right, everything's normal. Obviously, you could go out there and analyze a game. I mean, analyze a team. Drop good plays and stuff. But if you're dealing with injuries, with lack of leadership, with chemistry issues, in a shortened season, COVID season, all this traveling, back-to-back games, that's when you see a real coach or like the top coaches actually look like a great coach. I think that's his problem. He's not looking like a great coach because he's lacking some good qualities right now.
Yep.
And with Tatum and Brown, they're super young, but like you said, Tatum went to the conference finals in his rookie year. He went to the conference finals last year with Brown. And I know this is Brown's, I guess last year and this year kind of been his breakout seasons. So he's kind of been a top dog too. I think they're both good enough to lead the team. I just don't think what they're doing right now obviously is not elevating the team because they have the personnel to be a conference championship team. I don't know about the finals, but they could make noise in the playoffs. They could win a series or two. But right now they're looking like they don't even want to be in the playoffs.
Yep.
I do put that on some of it on injuries, but on the other part, I just feel like Tatum and Brown's and Marcus Smart's and Kevin's leadership, I feel like with having good players like that, you should be overcoming things like what's been going on with them.
One thing I want to say real quick that I say about everybody.
And with Stevens, if he's a good coach, they should be able to overcome it, right?
And the part of that's management as well, because like I mentioned with the drafting, like there's no excuse for that. But one thing I say about everybody, no matter what, all right, because I hear from my friends all the time, the LeBron fans, well, he averages a triple double, bro. What else do you want him to do? Blah blah blah, stuff like that. Where you with Steph Curry, blah blah blah. Sometimes doing certain things, to me, if it's not leading to winning, you got to figure out something else. This is what I love about Kobe Bryant, all right? Because Kobe, when that team, you guys remember way back when that team was abysmal, and I could say the same thing about MJ. I brought it up before. He averaged a triple double for like 15 games when they lost their point guard. I can't remember who it was at the time. Was it Steve Nash? I don't remember Mohammed back then.
Oh, you talking about 2013?
I can't remember the year, but like you remember
that
Kobe
stretch?
Or Mike? Kobe.
Okay, it's 2013 then.
Okay, and they asked him to do this. And he was like no longer, he was like, okay, scoring isn't going to win us these games. Right. I got to do everything else. Right. And he averaged like 14, 15 points for that stretch or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't his normal scoring numbers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a player figuring out how to win. All right. Yep. So Tatum and Brown, yes, they can be great. You can score all you want. You can do whatever you want. If it's not winning you games, then it's not the right thing to do. I don't care about your personnel. Don't whine to me that you need more playmakers. Find a way to get it done. Figure out how to win a game with your personnel. It may not be scoring. So I just wanted to rant there because I hate that argument when people say that kind of stuff.
Yep.
What else can I do? Figure out what you can do to win.
Yeah.
You're an NBA, you guys are NBA teams. And yes, if I'm looking at like the Houston Rockets, okay, that's one thing. But the Celtics, come on. They're good enough to, like Mohammed said, they should win a playoff series and be competing for the conference, conference championship, at least. Yep. No question. That roster is good enough. So no excuses. I don't want to hear it.
Absolutely. Good point, Will.
I hope I get tweeted at for that.
Totally agree. I gotta know when I'm wrong. Totally right.
Wait, did you have the Celtics winning the East this year?
No, I do not. No.
You had the Heat, right?
I had the Heat, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So not this year. So I avoided that, I guess.
Thank God.
But moving on though to the Warriors this season. So Warriors' chances this season, and then next season when they get if and when they get Clay back, what do they be? I'm I don't know if you guys want me to start on this or not.
I do. I want to hear what you
Okay.
say.
Okay, so I think that this week, this upcoming week right now is very important in terms of them getting into the playoffs. I think they need to be contenders. I think they need to win multiple games this week, specifically this week, because the Pelicans have been red hot. I think they're only a couple games behind. They've recently kind of fallen off. I mean, if they are susceptible to injuries this week, and they aren't locked in this week, I don't see them making the playoffs because so many teams in the West have been hot. I mean,
Pelicans have not been that hot lately.
yeah,
Take
but
that back.
they won 2 games. They won 2 games straight though. They combined for that OT win against the Wolves recently. They beat the Thunder. I mean, they could.
They did beat the Clippers, so I'll give you that.
Yeah, and then they have what else do they have? So they have the Warriors. Yeah, so they have the Warriors twice this upcoming week. So this is going to be very big. These 2 games against the Pelicans on Monday and Tuesday. So when the podcast is uploaded on Wednesday, we'll know where the Pelicans sit and where the Warriors sit and where they are in rankings and like a power ranking. So if the Warriors can't win against the Pelicans at least once, I'm going to question their chances for making the tournament. But I have them winning the play-in tournament if they do make it, because I feel Steph is going to will them to win, and I think Draymond will be nice. So those are my opinions this year. In terms of next year, when they have Draymond and they have Steph, and then if they have obviously Clay, I see them as a severe playoff contender, borderline finals contender in the West, because they have done crazy things when they've had those 3 players, and then in addition with Wiggins, with Oubre, with Wiseman, who might be back next year. They're just stacked, and Clay and Steph play so well together, and then Draymond adds that extra aggressiveness and defensive presence as well. I see them being certainly a playoff contender and almost probably a finals contender as well. So that's my opinion. That's what I have.
Do you want to go, Will?
No.
Let's see what these teams have to say. Oh no.
Well, right now, I don't think they could make the play-in. They could. They couldn't. Depends on the schedule, because with facing bad teams, obviously they've been doing good. But when they play playoff contending teams, they don't really win that much. So it depends on their schedule if they can make the play-in for me. But on the other note, with Clay, obviously him being a great shooter, a great two-way player, he has a lot to the team. But for me, they gotta sign at least, I wouldn't say another superstar, but just maybe a good forward or a good big man. For them to be a finals, like a championship contending team, that's what they need to sign for me. So not a Drummond type player, but that could actually, maybe score a little and play better defense than he can. I can't really think on top of my head who's a player like that right now, but I guess maybe Al Horford, if they could try to get him, that'd be a good addition. But the reason why they were good in the 7-3 win season and the championship season before that, pre-Durant, they had good chemistry, and they also had a bench. I think the bench is going to be a big issue next year, even if they get Clay back, because it's good to have Clay back, but I feel like just with Clay and a bad bench, that's a 6th through 7th seed. And I don't know if the NBA is planning on doing a play-in tournament again next year. If they are, then you're in trouble, because you can't really risk, doing a play-in, because it's one game series, so you never know what happens. But for them, I think they need to have a good offseason, sign some good free agents, maybe trade for some people. But just with Clay, that's a bottom of the playoff, bottom half of the playoff contending team for me. If they have a good bench like they did those championship seasons, then I say they maybe a top 3 seed. They can go for the finals. They can be a conference championship contending team. But I don't think just having Clay back, especially him being off of an ACL and Achilles now, you never know how he's going to turn out to be. I know his game doesn't really reflect on explosiveness and being quick, but at the same time, he is a good defender. So if you're going to have him, guarding second best player or the best player on the team every day, and then including the playoffs, I might, take a tear on his body. So you never know how he's going to be after the injuries. That's my opinion.
Okay, so this year, I already said I didn't think they were making the playoffs. I've said it multiple times. I don't think they're making the playoffs this year still. But they are lucky. They're really fortunate with this week's schedule because while the Pelicans may have they've won like 3 of their last, I don't know, they're like 4-6 in their last 10. So I don't really consider them that hot, but they did beat the Clippers a few days ago and they won 2 in a row or something. I don't know, maybe they're 5-5 last 10. You can fact check me on that, Zach. But
the Pelicans,
yeah.
They've won 2 straight, like I mentioned, and they're 4-6 in their last 10.
They're 4-6. Okay, so I would consider those easier tier games for them. I don't know. I'd have to look at the roster. I can't remember if the Pelicans are all healthy right now. Because if the Pelicans are all healthy right now, those aren't easy wins in my opinion.
Right.
But they play the Wizards after, right?
Yeah.
Those are going to be big games as well.
Yeah, the Warriors play.
Those are going to be huge games.
So the Pelicans or the Warriors?
The Warriors play the Wizards, right? The last 2 games of the week.
No. They play Pelicans, Thunder.
Oh, it's the Thunder. My bad.
Yeah, and then Jazz.
So they're lucky because the Thunder, they're going to kill. They should beat the Thunder, bro. If they lose, first of all, they have to beat both. They have to win both games against the Thunder. You cannot lose one of those games. SGA is not playing. Like there's no way you can lose. So you got to win those 2. At the very least, you got to split the ones with the Pelicans.
Yeah.
But I don't. How do I say this? I don't think they're going to 7th or 8th seed. Maybe they'll make the tournament. I just don't think they're going to win it. The more I say it, the more I start to think that somehow they will get like an 8th seed. But I got to go with what I've said because that roster is just not that good. It really isn't, and
it's atrocious.
Steph is great, but Steph. I've said it before. I do think he plays a little worse when it matters most. You will agree with that. I know you were going to disagree. You're going to disagree with that, Zach. Yeah. That's just what I think. As for next year, getting Klay back, Mohammed, you talked about it. Yeah, Klay Thompson is great, but he's come off 2 crucial injuries. Are you kidding me? This man, he didn't want to hear what I was going to be nice to him, but now I'm not going to be nice to the Warriors. All right. Say less. While Klay can be an offensive weapon still, because he can shoot. I mean, we've seen videos of that man barely even doing anything. He doesn't even need to jump. It's just wet every time. He was a god from the line, 3-point line. Defense is the part of Klay Thompson's game that separates him from everybody else on as a shooting guard. Because I think everybody agrees James Harden's number 1. And it's only because James Harden is just that gifted offensively. Like if Klay Thompson was somehow as gifted as James Harden offensively, I think everybody in their right mind would have Klay Thompson as the best shooting guard because he's just that great defensively. That's the part of this game that's going to be impacted big time, in my opinion. And that can really hurt the Warriors because, like you said, the Warriors were good back before Durant because of chemistry, their bench, and team play. Their team play was unbelievable. It's not there anymore. It's just not. I don't know. They've dealt with a ton of injuries this year, like a ton.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know. But next year, getting Klay Thompson back, they're going to be in the mix. They're not going to be title contenders. They're not going to – because they're not going to be better than the Clippers, assuming Kawhi resigns. You said he's going to resign, Zach?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know. If Kawhi doesn't resign, then, forget what I just said. Assuming the Lakers get everybody back, like assuming these teams stay the way they are, I'm putting the Clippers. The Clippers. I'm putting the Warriors still behind the Clippers, still behind the Lakers, still behind the Nuggets, and maybe behind the Jazz as well. But I'm having them right about the 4th or 5th. But I don't think they're going to win the finals. But they'll be a playoff team and probably win a round. But that I shouldn't, because the other thing with what. However long ago with their team is everybody's 6 years older. That matters. Age matters. I mean, shooters shoot, but there are other aspects that play into that. And the problem is, as Steph and Clay age, and as great as they are, no disrespect, because they can shoot the lights out, and shooters will always be able to shoot. Who's gonna step up after them? I don't see anybody on that team. Draymond has just gotten worse every single year, in my opinion. James Wiseman, personally, I think we both said Mohammed. We think he's the best player out of this draft. I think he will. He is.
Yep.
So maybe he will show out. I hope so, because I really like him. But after that, I have no reason to believe that Wiggins is going to be I don't know. I have no reason to believe he's just going to turn into like a great player suddenly that plays consistently all the time. If he does, cool. Oubre as well. But I just think they're going to be a good playoff team next year. Healthy
The
Clay.
thing is, though, like I said, with how they should sign with, I don't know if Draymond's doing a bad job. I think he's doing a good job with Wiseman, but if you can sign a player like a Horford oh my God, who am I banking on? Horford, or just a guy like that, a good veteran that could show Wiseman how to elevate his game, make him a better player. I mean, Derek Favors is a pretty good big man too. He's been consistently always good throughout his career. So just sign someone like that, and if they can, I don't know if you guys seen a report, but 2 weeks ago there was a report that the Warriors are going to go after Kawhi in the offseason when he's a free agent.
I saw that.
If he opts out of his contract, but if they sign like I said, a forward like Kawhi, that's a pretty good team, because then you can move guys like Oubre and Wiggins to the bench, and then if they make some decent signings like a good role player that's a free agent, or they can trade for one, that's a pretty good team. I mean, that's on par with the championship team pre-Durant, because now you have good guys coming off the bench, and then as long as their chemistry and the team play, stays intact, then I think they could be a championship contending team. But that's a lot to ask for.
I'm operating under the assumption their roster doesn't change, because obviously if they get Kawhi Leonard, they're going to be a championship contender. Like,
I
no
think,
question.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that with how they look this year, I think that our front office is gonna try to go after some good players in the offseason. So,
and I will give the Warriors credit. Their front office is one of the
pretty
better
good
ones. It's made great decisions. I mean, it seems like every time they lose a name brand player, they just end up with a different one.
Yeah,
Wiggins to a lesser extent. I wouldn't, obviously not a name brand, but a formidable player. Most teams would take Wiggins.
Yeah.
On their team, because he's just that good. So.
Yep.
But time will tell.
Yes, sir. Yeah. But Leonard is, so according to a report by The Athletic, Kawhi is still widely expected to re-sign with the Clippers, and many executives believe that he will re-sign. There's obviously, he has said that he will probably decline the player option just because he'll make more money. But that doesn't mean he's staying or leaving, and he'll talk about it when the time is right, which is a standard Kawhi comment there.
Yep.
But we'll see what happens. Obviously, if they get bounced into the playoffs very early, then he'll probably consider offers, but too early to tell at this point. So we're moving on to the player versus player debate this week.
Wait, I want to say real quick, Zach,
okay.
Thanks for citing your source there. Our
problem.
Our graphic designer, Jack, will really appreciate the fact that you cited the source.
Really likes his sources, even though he doesn't like to cite them as himself. But
whatever.
Moving on with player versus player debate this week is Charles Barkley versus the Spurs legend David Robinson. His nickname is the Admiral, right? Yep, the Admiral versus the round mound of rebound this week. So, who wants to start off this debate? It's interesting. I'll start. I can start off this week. I'm going. It's very tough, but based off of I'm leaning towards Robinson because based off of playoff success, he's got a ring. He's got 2 rings. And his defensive accolades, and then the stats. I think they're pretty even on stats. So I think that he won Defensive Player of the Year. What else? He's, just an overall one of the best defenders of all time. All defensive first team 4, all defensive team 8-time selection. Like I said, Defensive Player of the Year. He led the league in rebounds one year, led the league in blocks one year. They're pretty even on NBA team selections, pretty even on all NBA first teams. Both have won a season MVP. So I'm going with Robinson because he has the edge in defense and championships.
All right, I'll go next. I didn't really pick a player just because I kind of know Barkley's history more than Robinson, so I just kind of did my research on Robinson just to see what kind of career he had. But like Zach said, he was a one-time Defensive Player of the Year, one-time Rookie of the Year, obviously. He was a blocks champion, a rebound champion 1 year, 2, 10-time All-NBA, 8-time All-Defensive Player NBA. But there was a season, I don't know if you guys saw, but a lot of people were celebrating the anniversary of him winning the scoring champion because on last day of the season, he scored 71 points to edge out Shaq. In the 94 season, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to talk about Robinson's season that year because he was second in MVP. He did lose out to the great Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon, but that season, man, he was just unbelievable. He averaged 29.8 points a game. That led the league. He averaged 10.7 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 50% from the field, 34% from 3, and 74 from free throws, 3.3 blocks, and 1.7 steals.
Did he have a quadruple double that season?
Yeah, I think that was the season he had 2 quadruple doubles.
Yeah.
He led the league in triple doubles with 5. It's crazy.
Probably led the
only
league
5.
in quadruple doubles too.
And with 2, yeah. He also led the league in free throws attempted, and he had 182 more than second place, which was Karl Malone. Because that season, that man was just you couldn't stop him because he was so quick. He was so athletic, dude. Especially in the paint. He actually had 7 games of 40 plus. I think that was number 1 in the league. I'm not sure. He actually led the NBA in win shares that year. Box plus minus contributed to 8.9 points per 100 possessions. That led the league. He also led the league in defense plus minus. So, like I said, he could have won MVP, but he lost to Hakeem Olajuwon that year. But one thing he does, he has a reputation for is in the playoffs, he's dubbed as a soft player by other players and a lot of analysts, just because his game is not. I mean, he is a good scorer. It's just, I guess in the playoffs, he's not the same guy. So I don't know if that's mentality wise or if that's just maybe his game's easy to defend because of the slowed possessions and all that in playoffs. But the year after, he did win MVP with worse numbers than the season I just talked about, which is funny. But 94, 95, we all know that was Hakeem's 2 championship seasons. And he's labeled soft because against Hakeem in the Western Conference Finals, that 94 season, Hakeem just tore him apart. It was ridiculous. And he did the same thing. I think it was 95. I'm not sure if he made the playoffs that year. I didn't put in my notes, but yeah, he's just. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's not exactly an insult or too big of an insult to have Hakeem Olajuwon just absolutely shred you apart.
Yeah, but it's just because of the hype, I guess. Because when he came to the league, he was 24, so he was a pretty old rookie just because of his time in the Navy. But he was dubbed the next Bill Russell by a lot of people. He was dubbed the next great player, and a lot of people say he was going to be him and Mike as the 2 big stars in the league. So he did come with a lot of hype, a lot of potential. It was just that when it came to playoffs, he just wasn't the same man. Obviously, that changed in '99, but that's because of the addition of Tim Duncan, who was a sophomore. But in '99 in the finals, he did average 15 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks. 2 assists, 2 blocks. He only took 10 shots per game, so he wasn't, the offensive guy he was in previous years, but he was 36 at the time. So, he was pretty old, but I just think he's an underrated big man, but obviously playing in the 90s with guys like Hakeem, Shaq, and Charles Barkley, and, playing Tim Duncan, that kind of altered his reputation, and, he's kind of underrated. But in terms of him against Barkley, I guess I would take him just because of his defensive impact on the league, on the game.
I want to ask, because I don't remember, but weren't he and Tim Duncan like one of the greatest defensive backcourts ever?
Oh yeah, for sure.
They were like unreal. It was so hard to score on them. Just from my own memory. But here's a little weird thing. Did you guys know? I'm sure you guys did know. David Robinson averaged 3 blocks per game. Did you say that, Mohammed?
Yeah, he actually averaged 3+ blocks his first 7 seasons.
He averaged that for his career. I'm not familiar with where that ranks all time, but I gotta imagine that's top 5.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But okay, so 8 defensive all teams, or 8-time all defensive team.
Yeah.
Pretty much right there is right there just says why I'm gonna choose Robinson as well. But I want to give Barkley credit because you kind of spoke on Robinson's career. I know you're more familiar with Barkley. Barkley is severely underrated. Severely.
Both of these are very underrated players. Yes.
But Barkley especially because he didn't really take care of himself in the latter parts of his career, maybe even throughout his career, health-wise, you can say. And the other thing is, now he's on TV, so a lot of people, it's hard to separate him on TV versus his playing time. But don't get it twisted. Charles Barkley was a man amongst boys, and he was small. So the things that he did for his size were insane. The fact that he averaged 12 rebounds per game at his size is ridiculous. And
6'5", man, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, if he had taken better care of himself and cared more, I would love to see what he would have been. Because remember in Last Dance, MJ would always talk about how he'd be like, yo, Charles he just doesn't have that will. He doesn't want to win like that, Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people say the same thing about Robinson was his fire.
Yeah. The only thing is he had the luxury to win, you know. And Charles, I know Chuck tried to team up later in his career.
Yeah, with the Rockets.
With the Rockets and get an easy one, and it didn't work out for him. Yeah. But it should be noted, he's nothing to just brush over.
Right.
While I do think David Robinson is the better player, because Chuck he had a lot of bad timing. Because we talked about David Robinson, we just said, didn't really have that drive to win, but he was fortunate to get Tim Duncan and win some championships. But Charles Barkley wasn't that lucky.
Yep.
He had to go through Hakeem, and then if he made the finals, guess who he had to meet?
Yep.
Michael
Jordan, Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen.
Yep.
So he got really unlucky, and I don't think there's an excuse. You got to find a way to win, but when we're comparing these two, David Robinson was a little more fortunate with that. If Chuck had somebody like Tim Duncan alongside him, a top 10 player of all time, most people would say, I'm sure he would have probably gone to ring.
Yeah.
But David Robinson, guys, the fact that he averaged 3 blocks per game, 1.4 steals per game, 8-time all defensive teams. I mean, this dude was unreal. Him and Tim Duncan, one of the hardest duos to ever score against. Grossly underrated as a player.
Facts.
He's better. He's just better to me. And yes, part of that is he won championships, and that has to matter. He's a better player legacy to me.
I mean, you got to give credit to Charles. I mean, obviously you said, he was pretty good for his size, but.
Well, that's what I was literally just about to say. Adam, give him 4 more inches. I don't know what I wouldn't have liked to see what would have happened to the league, because Chuck could have been really crazy, and then give them both the drive to want to win. You know,
Yep.
I don't know if it was competitive spirit, like both of them knew that they were just playing like, oh, we have to go against Hakeem. Like everybody knew Hakeem was better. I get that, David Robinson came in with the hype, but like Hakeem was just he's probably just better. Everybody like he's just that good. And maybe people see that and be like, okay, you know what, we're not gonna beat him. I'm fine with second. I'm fine with coming close. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, maybe if they had more of a drive.
I mean, David Robinson, he was just dubbed as a gentleman, obviously because of his upbringing and being the Navy and stuff like that, military. He's always, I looked up, like, he's always commented nice things about other players. Even after losses, he would also like congratulate the team, stuff like that. So I think in his case, he was just too much of a nice guy. I think that's why going up against guys like Hakeem, which he was compared to, especially after that '94 season. And him losing out the MVP to Hakeem, those two comparisons were, always brought up. So I think Hakeem took a more, not as offensive, but that kind of made him more, more wanting to beat out David Robinson, especially when they met in the playoffs. So I think that's a big reason why he dominated him so much. But with Charles, he was a good trash talker. So I think he did have that drive, but I just think it wasn't enough probably.
David Robinson would be good for today because players are super, as they say, cupcakey nowadays. Yeah. Like he'd be nice to everybody. LeBron's a nice superstar, like KD, Harden, Kyrie, Steph. Obviously, I mean everybody loves Steph, right?
Right.
I don't know if I've ever seen like a Michael Jordan ever talk nice about a player during a game. Like, are you kidding me? That would never happen. In that era.
Facts.
So maybe he's more built for this era.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Interesting. Two very underrated players, as we both stated. Interesting debates and talks about both of them, regardless who won. Nice peaceful debate. Not a lot of tempers flaring. Appreciate that. But we're moving on to the bold takes of the week to wrap this up. Real quick. So I'll go first. Knicks are not in the 3 seed. I don't think that it was even possible. Classic. Heat are not in the 5 seed, but they are in the 6 seed. And Randall did not score a 50-point game.
The Heat are they're literally a half game from the 5 seed. That's crazy.
I know. Yep. But
Knicks couldn't get this.
Sean said 2-game win streak for
who was it?
The Warriors?
Was it the Warriors? That wouldn't have been bold. Did he say that?
I can't remember what he said, but he's not on this week, so that's tough. He wouldn't have. That's very tough. But Mohammed said Sacramento 3-game win streak. That did not happen. They're on a 2-game win streak, though. So you were close.
That's because Fox is out. If Fox were there, they're on a 3-game win streak right now. Oh no, you're right.
Yep.
If Fox were there, they'd be on a 3-game win streak.
William, Knicks win every game this week.
No, they lost one.
Rip.
Dang it, bro.
9-1 in their last 10, though. Blazers go undefeated. Mavs fall to 9 seed. No.
None of that happened. In fact, the Mavs moved up.
Fat blank this week. Yikes.
Yikes.
That's very tough. Very tough scene. But this week, I'm going to say, for boldness this week, I'm going to say that the Lakers are falling into the play-in tournament. You cannot tell me that's not bold.
That's good, I guess.
Play-in.
They're a half game out of it, but the fact that they have LeBron and AD back should.
They fall out. I think that's enough. And this is very bold. Do I want to say anything else? Any team being on fire? I don't know. I'll say Devin Booker scores 50 points. 50-point game. All right, that's mine. Next.
I'll just have Pelicans will make the play-in tournament.
So that's a season one.
Well, there's only 5 games left in the season?
Yeah, I'll just count that. Yeah.
Does it end this week though?
As long as they move in. No, it doesn't end this week. No, but as long as I'll just count it as move in.
2 weeks left.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
How many games is there left?
Till not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. 8 games.
Okay, well, originally I meant they'll move into a play-in spot.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So they're gonna sweep the Warriors then this week. That must mean.
Hopefully they do.
Oh man. Oh no.
They pretty much have to if they want to get into the.
Oh, is that it?
Nope.
All right, Will.
I got 3. Hornets gonna hop into the 7th seed.
Wow.
Is that even possible? Yeah. Oh God, it is possible.
Okay.
D Rose is going off for 40 points at some point this week.
Wow.
4-0. And the Heat are gonna move up to the 4th seed. They're gonna replace the Knicks.
We'd love to see some Heat.
whoever.
We'd love to see some Heat success, considering my statements. Go to the last episode to check out the full list of the seasonal bold takes. But that'll be we're getting close to the playoffs here, so it's really going to heat up. But appreciate everybody tuning in this week. Very exciting. The playoffs are coming. A lot of the cool matchups coming in too. So appreciate everybody tuning in to another week. As always, hit us on social media, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all that. Appreciate everybody again. Episode 14. Yes, sir.
Parma's gonna score a goal this week, by the way.
Oh, no.
One goal. Exactly one goal. Peace.